600 wins, 6 Georgia State championships, 16 regional championships, 2-time National Coach of the Year, first team from Georgia to win the City of Palms Classic, the nation's #1 high school tournament, first team in Georgia history to attend the Dick's Sporting Goods National Tournament of Championships. He's produced numerous NBA players and professional basketball players all over the world. It's real basketball talk. It's real help and real life with Coach Doug Lipscomb on the BG Podcast Network.
And welcome once again to Real Life Basketball. Yours truly, Darren Sutherland, here with the coach, the legendary Doug Lipscomb. Coach, how you doing this afternoon?
Great.
How was your Christmas?
It was too short.
Too short, always. New Year's coming. We got some great New Year's predictions coming up. I'm going to catch Coach off guard. I'm going to make him pick the Final Four and NBA playoffs. But first, we got some great interviews coming up today, Coach. Some good men, some good basketball men. And what I like about what we're bringing to the table on Real Life Basketball, Coach, is we're getting interviews from the folks that you don't hear in the mainstream. Let me give you an example. Today, we're going to talk with George Washington. Now, many of you might think George Washington is who, Coach?
You're going to say the president.
The president. That's what most people would say. All right, you pull out a dollar bill, and whose picture do you see?
You're going to say the president.
The George Washington, okay? We're not talking to that George Washington. We're talking to George Washington, head coach of Pebblebrook High School. Now, if you're in a place like Eugene, Oregon, where we've got listeners, you have no idea in the world who George Washington, the head coach for Pebblebrook High School, is. Or if you're listening in Ashburn, Virginia, or somewhere in Kentucky, you probably got no idea. But if you live in Metro Atlanta, you know who George Washington is because he's the head coach of Pebblebrook High School, but he's also was the head coach for one of the premier freshmen in all of NCAA basketball today, Collin Sexton from the University of Alabama. Coach, you coached against Collin. What was that like back in the day?
He's a great player and comes from a very good program.
Good program. We're going to get some great insight from a public school program. It's actually a Title I school. We're going to get some great insight from George on that. And then coming up later in the show, Stan Jones. You say, who is Stan Jones? Stan's been around a while, hasn't he, Coach?
Yes, he has.
He's been in the ACC longer than Danny Manning has at Wake Forest, hasn't he?
He's been there for a while.
Probably going to be there longer than Danny Manning if you don't know the truth about it. Been there longer than Josh Pastor at Georgia Tech, hasn't he?
Yes. Come on, Josh. Let's get it going.
We got to get it going. I mean, come on. But he's been there longer than a lot of folks. You say, who is Stan Jones and what does Stan Jones have to do with basketball? Stan Jones is the assistant coach with Florida State, been with Leonard Hamilton down there, and he's going to give us some incredible insight not only on Florida State basketball, the ACC, but all kind of other fun things from travel and how things have changed to how recruiting has changed to what to expect from Florida State this year. Talks about their big team from last year, their high draft picks, and what they're looking for this year. Going to be a good show today, isn't it, Coach?
I think it is.
All right, let's jump off. First, let's go on the Carriage Automotive Group Skype line down to Tallahassee, Florida, home of the Seminoles. And we won't even bring up Jimbo Fisher. You think that'd be a good thing to talk to Stan Jones about, Coach?
He's gone.
He's gone, yeah. They need to talk about all things new down there. Let's go down to Tallahassee and talk to Stan Jones with Florida State on the Carriage Automotive Group Skype line. Welcome back to Real Life Basketball. Darren Sutherland, Coach Doug Lipscomb here on the Carriage Automotive Group Skype line, and we're going to go down to Tallahassee, Florida, and talk a little ACC basketball. It may not be Tallahassee. He may be living outside of Tallahassee. Coach, he may be down in Apalachicola eating oysters or something this morning. That's what I'd be doing if I was down there. We've got assistant coach for the Florida State Seminoles, Coach Stan Jones, on the line with us. Coach Jones, how you doing this morning?
I'm doing great, fellas. Thanks for having me on.
No problem, my friend. Say hello to the legend, Coach Doug Lipscomb. He's out of the grind, Coach. I keep telling him he could find one if he wanted to, don't you think?
There's no doubt about that, and there's no question that he's a legend. And being a long ago and a long-time high school basketball coach, I have the utmost respect for the powerhouse and the lives that Coach Lipscomb affected as a coach there at Wheeler High School. And I'm just glad to get a little chance to share some time with him this morning.
Well, thank you, Coach. One of my best people that I coached
back in the day was Antoine Dixon, and he was, I think, 4-year starter at Florida State. I love coming to watch Florida State basketball.
Well, Antoine is one of the good people out there. We didn't actually coach it, Antoine, but he has been very close to the program, and every time he comes to Tallahassee, he comes, hangs out with us, and if we're recruiting in Atlanta, he tries to come hang out with us, and he is certainly a Seminole for life.
Sounds good, Coach.
That's one thing about it. If you're a Seminole for a year or 4 years, you're a Seminole for life. And that's what we hear good about the Seminole. Coach, tell us a little bit about what's going on with Florida State basketball right now, pre-conference play, how your season's gone thus far, and what people should expect going into the conference after the new year.
Well, after last season when we had the second-best record in school history other than the Final Four team of 1972, we lost 2 guys to the NBA draft. We lost 2 seniors. We lost another early entrant who put his name in the professional ranks, and 4 of those guys were starters. And so most pundits out there and people who say they're really smart about college basketball kind of left us for dead, didn't think we were going to be much of anything, figured we'd be in the bottom third of the league. But we felt really good about the kids we had coming in. We felt really good about the guys returning. And I learned this when I was a high school coach. My next to last year, we won the state championship, and we lost a whole bunch of guys. I actually only had 2 kids coming back who had dressed out all the time on the varsity team. And I was sitting there talking to my athletic director one day, and he made one of the most profound statements. And he says, "Coach, you're going to be better than you think you were, because those kids that are coming back practiced against the state championship team every day all year, and they're going to be more prepared than people who didn't." And we ended up going back-to-back with those kids coming up off the JV and the guys that only dressed part-time and won it again. And the kids we've had coming back have certainly gained a lot because they played against a Jonathan Isaac and a Dwayne Bacon and a Michael Ojo, and they have played extremely well. Now, are we loaded with guys that are going to be lottery picks like Jonathan Isaac? We're not, but we're actually playing much better with the sum of our parts than we are with the individual play of our guys, and it's been really refreshing as a coach because these guys have been very coachable. They've been very into each other. They enjoy playing with each other, and they've got a little competitive chip on their shoulders. Move into the top 25 rankings here in non-conference play.
Coach, Florida State, Tallahassee, you're probably the farthest away, other than maybe Miami, from other schools. Tell me how travel has changed and how Florida State travels from game to game through the ACC schedule and across the country.
Well, I think times have changed a little bit, and our athletic department does a fantastic job of supporting our program and giving us the opportunity to be on a competitive equal with our league conference. We charter everywhere we go, so we're getting on a bus at the practice facility and going out and getting right on the tarmac, getting on a plane, flying we'll be leaving here this weekend to go up to Duke. It'll be an hour flight up to the Raleigh-Durham airport, and then our hotel in Durham. So it's really not as bad as it used to be when I was with Coach Hamilton at the University of Miami and we had to go into Big East. And that was really some travel problems. And we had to go commercial, which is not always a lot of fun when you're trying to get a bunch of 6'10", 6'11" guys exit row seats and trying to hustle and bustle at the airport to get early in the morning after a game for a 4:30 wake up for a 6:30 flight back to Miami. That was some hard days back now. So it's certainly much more convenient nowadays with the support our athletic department gives us.
Coach Jones, we've seen recruiting go from just in the high school gyms to now AAU to now friends and family. Tell me how recruiting has changed. Even Coach Doug talks about it a lot of times. Tell us how recruiting has changed for you, the assistant coach, in the past 10 years.
Well, it used to be the way I liked it when I started as a player and then as a high school coach. It used to be you dealt with guys like Coach Lipscomb and the parents, and you kind of could circle the wagon. And it also actually helped more when you had a kid that came to your school that, back 20 years ago or so, if that kid was having some problems, you could call the high school coach, you could call the parents, and you could kind of get everybody circling the wagons, and you could help that kid get through some difficulties that all kids go through when they go to college a little easier. Now you have the recruiting aspect has gone to such another level because of technology and cell phones, social media. You now have the travel ball coaches, and then the other element that's got in is you now have all the guys every kid has to have their workout trainer. So if a kid's going through a little bit of a difficulty or you're trying to get him recruited, you got to your man hours and the amount of people you have to reach out and touch and talk to and keep coordinated what everybody's thoughts and opinions are, and then try to be able to help that kid grow and learn and mature and mentor him as his college coach, it has really escalated the amount of time you have to put in. Where, back in the day when a kid didn't have a cell phone, if you say, man, come by the office or come over to the house, let's get a hamburger and let's talk about a few things, they'd come on over because they had to pay for a long distance phone call. Nowadays, if you had to tell a kid, hey, come by the house, let's have a hamburger tonight, or come by the office and let's talk about a few things, they done had 15 conversations with people on the way over to your office, and they're saying, what's coach tripping on? What's coach want? What have you done wrong? So the kid's getting loaded up with negativity before he even sits down in front of you. And then by the time you get through and you can tell you've made good progress with the kid and his eyes are enlightened to what he needs to be thinking and working on a little bit, by the time he gets to the door to go back to his apartment or back to class, them conversations that hit him back up with either a text or a phone call. Same thing, man. You okay? Was coach hating on you? What was coach thinking about? And so it takes you a lot longer of sometimes getting kids to the buy-in, because they sometimes have to fail a little bit more than they used to have before they was willing to say, I need to sit down and figure this out, because college is a little different than high school or coming from my hometown.
Yeah. Let me go on and chime in on some things, Coach. I'd say number one, as far as being a disciplinarian, Coach Hamilton is an awesome coach. And he doesn't have a lot of time for BS. And I don't think, even if you say he's changed, not you. If society says he's changed, he ain't changed to the point of where he's going to just let you do exactly what you want to do. Because, he's straight guideline dude. And I love for my players to have a coach like that. What's so crazy is you named all the people that are involved with these kids today, where you almost need a list. Like you say, the handler, AAU coach, Kenny on the corner, or Jimmy at the rec center, or whoever. But what's so funny, you mentioned the fact that even if you want to have a hamburger with this kid, it's some people out there will say that that's illegal, and that's another one of those statements where I'm going to have to say that's some BS, but things like that. And where you deal with kids today, that's right. The parents are the people always say, what is coach tripping on? You hardly ever hear, are you down there screwing up? You don't hear that anymore. And that's where things have changed to me. And I'll tell you guys,
no question, Coach. You're 100 on that.
If I could get my kids in a program where I know they're going to be taken care of as far as not being, like say, fed at certain times, or being shunned, or not getting help academically, then that's where I would have issues. But you guys have always done well with your kids in your program.
Coach, you're absolutely right. Coach Hamilton's one of those guys. He's a genuine article, and he came up through a period in our history where he had to work for everything he got, and he had some disadvantages. He went through the segregation times and the difficulties he had to grow up with. He tells stories to our players all the time of his father being a bootlegger, and how poor they were, and his father bought him his last piece of clothing when he was 13 years old. So all he's known is you got to work hard and you got to get your education if you're going to be a successful person in life. And he really tries to every day mentor our guys. And I tell people all the time that as good a basketball coach as he is, he's a far greater molder of people. And when he can have, and parents will just work with him, and he's very proactive. He doesn't wait till a kid has a problem. He's amazing to me. I watch him every day. But he's proactively calling the parents before there's a problem. He's staying in touch with them. He's keeping lines of communication open. You don't always see that in college basketball. There are college basketball programs where their head coach, you got to get an appointment to have a conversation with him. And Coach Hamilton's kind of on the opposite end of the spectrum. He tells our guys, if you're a player, you're not interrupting. So we could be having a staff meeting, getting ready for a game, and if somebody walks in and say, "Coach, I need to talk to you," all the assistant coaches, we getting up and getting out of the room, and that player sitting down having an eyeball conversation with Coach Hamilton and talking about whatever's going on in his life. And that's what makes him such a unique guy and such a long-time success and a long-time survivor in this business, being a guy that's been the first African-American in a lot of situations, from his days as a player to his days as a coach to never being fired as a college coach. And that speaks an awful lot about the content of his character.
Coach, you've been blessed. A lot of coaches can't say this, but I would say, Coach Doug, and you know this, Coach Doug, a lot of assistant coaches come and go. I mean, Coach Stan, you've been there for 16 years. That's a rarity. I mean, Coach, we make them count on our hands how many assistant coaches have been in one place for 16 years. Why is that, Coach? How have you been that lucky to be at one school for 16 years?
Well, Darren, being a person of faith and everything that I've been able to accomplish from being a high school coach and from now being a long-time assistant for Coach Hamilton and even having a chance to coach for a year in the NBA, I attribute it to kind of divine intervention. The man upstairs has kind of opened doors and made a way where it didn't make sense for there to be a way made, and I've tried to go in and whatever my bosses needed me to do, I've tried to always get that done without him having to worry about it getting done. And I think Coach Hamilton and I complement each other extremely well. I think the key to any really good head coach and any good coaching, any leaders, you got to be able to fill in your leadership gaps. And I think I do some things like that for Coach Hamilton. And he trusts me. And more importantly, he's such a good man and such a great person to work for that I haven't felt the anxiety to run out and say, I got to go run my own program. I'm a very lucky assistant coach. I get more leadership roles and more opportunities to do things than probably any assistant coach in the country. And I'm very grateful and humbled by that because Coach gives me great opportunity and gives me a great voice in what we're doing with our players and in game preparation and within games. And so it's just been a good fit, and it's been the right place for me to be and the right place for my family to grow up. And I'm just waiting. If the good Lord has the door opened up for me to be a head coach, I'm going to step through it. But right now, He's wanted me to be where I am, and I'm just happy every day to do it.
Well, that's a blessing, Coach. And this is Doug talking, because you being with Coach so long, it's no joke that you guys are family at this point in time, because he knows everything about you and you know everything about him as well. And he trusts you, or else you wouldn't be there. But let me ask you this.
Yes, sir.
In your preparation for your game coming up against Duke, that's a hellacious place to play, of course. And then you love it when you can get them down there because the crowd is always going to be larger. So having said that, I don't want you to give me a game plan, Coach, of course, but with those bigs that they have right there, do you think there's anybody in the country that can compete with those guys? And I hope you're going to say, yeah, hell yeah, us. But what do you feel about those bigs?
Well, it's a real different dynamic for Duke over the last 8-10 years. When you prepare for Duke, you spent more time worried about how you're going to contain dribble penetration and how you're going to contain the 3-point line. And now with those two bigs in Bagley and Carter, they really haven't had that kind of threat from the elbow to the block since probably they had Sheldon Williams, 10, 12 years ago. And one of the things that's a staple of our defense, we do still old school. A lot of people don't do it, don't believe it anymore, but we're a front to post team, even when we've had 7-footers. And we think that hopefully will give us a little bit of ability to maybe keep the ball out of those two guys' hands as much as possible. The next dynamic you have to deal with them, though, is you got to keep both of them off the boards. And those two guys have been more hungry to offensive rebound the ball, other than the Plumlee brothers that have been there in the last few years. You could kind of, if you could keep the one Plumlee brother off the floor, you could kind of control the defensive backboards. Now with those two guys, and then when they play three big, sometimes they play Marquise Bolden together. Now you're looking at three huge guys with huge wingspans, with a great ability and a nose for the ball. So we're going to have to be great on our techniques, on our post defense. We're going to have to be really good on blocking out. Our guards are going to have to give us some secondary block out guys and do their job of guys are getting back. They've got to go in there and help us clean up rebounds. And we're going to make them guard us. We're going to have to try to get them in some situations where they got to be effective in ball screen defense. We've got to be able to attack them a little bit if we can get them in some switches and isolation. So we've got a lot of things we've got to work on. But hopefully, the size we have, hopefully we can get to Chris Kamaji. Has been out for several weeks here with a little stress reaction in his foot. He was back for the first time in practice last night, so hopefully we can get him back to give us a little more size to go with Ike Obiagu and Phil Kofer, who are both Atlanta guys who are having terrific seasons so far for us. Phil's actually second in scoring for us. And Ike's like first or second in the conference in block shots and has gotten a lot of opportunity with Chris Kamaje being out. But we need those guys to really bring their hard hats on and be afraid to give some blows and take some blows and be a physical presence against those guys, and hopefully we can frustrate them a little bit.
Coach, no doubt if people read your bio and they read information about you, you'll note your dad was a traveling evangelist and a pastor. And being a coach, how does that parallel growing up in a pastor's home and an evangelist home, how does that parallel being a basketball coach?
Well, I think being a coach is more like being a pastor than it's being a traveling evangelist, because, you can get away sometimes with a traveling evangelist just having 3 or 4 nice sermons in the can, and you just got to go from place to place and do the same one over and over again. So you really don't have to stretch your boundaries of what you're dealing with, But when you're a pastor, which my dad was most of my growing up days, you're getting calls in the middle of the night. You're getting, people with a lot of hurts and pain. You're getting you're helping people celebrate special moments in their lives, and you're trying to get people to become the most successful they can be. And I equate that with being a basketball coach. I think the legendary Billy Graham said that more coaches will touch a coach will touch more people in his life than thousands of people will in their lives, just because of the impact we have and the leadership capacity we have through sports. And I take that very seriously every day. It's something that if I can just make a little bit of a difference in a kid's life, that will allow him to be a better father, a better husband, a better citizen, a better community leader, and he can pass that on to his kids and people that he works with. A little bit of me lives on, and hopefully it makes our world a little better place. And we need as much of that as we can nowadays, because so many cities nowadays, they're taking away the things that we had as kids growing up, the parks and the community centers, and even having the local high school gym open. And back in the day, Coach Lipscomb will know, because he was that kind of guy. The kids in your community, they hung out in your gym 24/7 almost every day, and you were able to keep them entertained and to keep them away from some of the bad elements of society. And it could go out in the community and say, look, man, this is a special one right here. You need to leave this one alone. And people would honor that, because the coach said, hey, this kid's got a chance. And so that's what we've got to continue. We got to try to keep protecting these kids. We also got to keep trying to harden them up where they can go out into society and be competitors and do it the right way. And I ask the good Lord for help every day that I can try to make that difference in our guys' lives.
Coach Jones, what should we expect from Florida State the remainder of the year?
Well, we've got a juggernaut. We've got to face head on here starting the season. The league didn't do us any favors. Of course, when you play in our league, you don't have many nights where you can catch your breath. But we got to start at Duke, obviously on Saturday. Then we have North Carolina coming to Tallahassee on Wednesday. Then we have to go down to our in-state rival down at the University of Miami, who's having a great year. And then we come back and get Louisville at home. And then we get Syracuse at home. And we play Syracuse on a Saturday. And then they expect us to be in Boston on Monday night to play at Boston College, who beat Duke on Monday night, with a one-day turnaround. And that travel will be pretty hard, because that's about a 3-hour flight to get up to after playing Syracuse on Saturday. So we've got a stretch right there that rivals what we had to last year when we had to start the season with 6 ranked teams in a row, and we ended up having a great start and going 5-1, which kind of catapulted us into being a good spot for the NCAA tournament. And hopefully our kids will be ready to take that challenge on this year, and we can go out there and prepare ourselves to get our share of these and to continue to surprise the college basketball pundits who didn't think we were going to be very good.
Coach Jones, thanks again for joining Coach Doug Lipscomb and myself and being a part of Real Life Basketball. We trust that you've had a good time, and we appreciate your time today.
All right. Thank you very much, and I appreciate you guys having me. I hope you'll have me back sometime, and it's good to see Coach Lipscomb out there continue to be in the basketball world. He's got a lot to still give. I know that.
Great interview, great insight on recruiting and all that kind of good stuff from Stan. What'd you think about Stan, Coach? Good fella.
Very informative. He's been around the game a long time and been very successful at it.
16 years as an assistant coach. You ran across college coaches all across the country. 16 years at one school is kind of unprecedented, is it not?
Well, it's very rare, and it's a good thing that he's been there that long because people know he's a fixture in the community and in the program.
How does relationships between these assistant coaches and the high school basketball coaches, how do they work, Coach?
Well, I think if you have somebody that's solid and been around the program a long time, that's somebody you can go to and get any information that you need, and you can pretty much know you're going to be able to trust what they say because they've been there. I mean, because rarely are you going to go back to somebody that's not been honest with you in the past.
Now, keeping it real, we ain't going to mention no names because we could mention some names. I'm going to catch you off guard with this question, Coach. But did you see some folks come knocking on your door or ringing your phone from time to time that said, hey, I'm so-and-so assistant coach, new assistant coach with, I don't know, Burger State in Kentucky, and you thought to yourself, Lord, you ain't going to be there 6 months and you're going to be down the road. Do you ever see somebody like that come along?
Oh, things like that happen, of course. They say they were at Burger State this year, and then 2 years later they're down at
French Fry U.
Yeah, Waffle House College, So, we'll keep, names don't have to be mentioned, and it's always amazing that wherever they go to, that's the best place for your kids. When they came from, Burger U, that was the best place for your kids. So I say that you learn things over time, and you figure out who's for real and who's not.
Yeah, Stan Jones is for real. 16 years in the ACC and at Florida State, big time. And you know what? I liked his character, too, and how he talked about his father and the parallels of coaching and the ministry. That said a lot for the young man.
Yes, and he's definitely with a great head coach as well.
Yep, good guy. All right, let's move on down. But first, I told the folks in the opening monologue I was going to get you, put you on the spot for your Final Four. Who you looking at, Coach?
Oh, most definitely. I'm liking Villanova. I like Duke. Texas A&M is my sleeper, and Arizona.
I like everybody you like. I like Duke. I like Arizona. I like Villanova. But I like Xavier. I like Xavier a lot. I like the Musketeers. I always think, one year, the best year I ever had picking the Final Four, and I don't know if you've ever done this. I had one year I picked Oklahoma State. And that was years ago, and that's when your man Big Country was playing center for Oklahoma State. We talk more about Big Country on this show than anybody in America. What do you think?
Yeah, Big Country, he made an impact on the game while he was involved.
He did make an impact on the game. Hey, and you know what? Since we're making predictions, big news was tweeted out yesterday in the recruiting world, and we've been talking about this every week, about where Zion Williamson's going to end up. He said he was going to make the announcement this week. That came out yesterday afternoon. And I know this show's coming out New Year's, so the announcement may be made before New Year's, but who knows? But where do you think? What's your leaning on Zion? If you just had to pick somebody from the cloud, Coach, where are you going? I know I'm putting you on the spot, and I didn't even tell you I was going to ask you this. So what are you thinking? I know it's hard for a coach to say something like that.
Well, I mean, I guess you'd call it a guesstimation.
Guesstimation.
Yeah, so I would say he could be leaning towards Kentucky, Duke, or Clemson. That's my top three.
Kentucky, Duke, and Clemson. I'm going to tell you what I heard and what I read after we come back from the interview with George Washington with Pebblebrook High School, and we talk about Collin Sexton. But what I heard, folks, I think you'll like. And I did some research on it and talked to some insiders yesterday. But first, let's go talk to George Washington at Pebblebrook High School.
All right.
Hey, and welcome back to Real Life Basketball. Your host, Darren Sutherland, and the legend, Coach Doug Lipscomb. Doug, you got one of your buddies. You're always digging up your friends on here. And joining us today is the coach of Pebblebrook High School. And for those listening around the country, you say, where's Pebblebrook High School? It's in Mableton, Georgia. Coach George Washington. George, how you doing this afternoon?
Hey, I'm doing well, especially coming off a win last night, so I'm doing really well.
Well, man, I tell you what, you had a big win last night, and I appreciate you coming on with us early this morning because I know you're hollering out there, wasn't you?
Yes, sir. Yes. The kids always make me holler. I go into the game planning on not yelling, not fussing, and all that goes out the window. Probably about the first minute of the first quarter.
That's hilarious. Hey, before we go any further, I got Coach Doug sitting here, and I always try to catch him off guard, and I always try to make somebody say something good and something bad about him. But What was it like coaching against Doug when he was at Wheeler and coaching the Wildcats back in the day? Just be for real with us. Go ahead and tell us what you were saying to your team in the locker room and how you were feeling coming out there on the floor.
What I said to him in the locker room, hey, guys, we about to be in for a battle. Coach Lipscomb teams always play tough, man. And one thing we always try to do, we say, hey, we want to be the toughest team on the floor, and we want to out-execute everybody. But, man, anytime you play Coach Lipscomb team, they were tough, they were skilled, and they were ready to play. And, I mean, we knew we was going to a battle every time we played them. And, I mean, we lost the first 2 battles to them, and we got them back last year. But, man, they were tough teams to beat. I mean, when you go back to those Jaylen Brown teams, oh, my God. And those guys love playing for Coach Lip. I mean, they enjoyed every moment playing for him, so they played hard for him. Now,
Coach George, give me a story. What did you feel like the first time you beat him? Now, go ahead and tell the truth.
Hey, first time I beat him. See, we had, on my team, the coaching staff, we had a running joke. The first coach to beat Wheeler was going to have a lifetime contract at Pebblebrook. Well, my JV coach happened to beat them a year ago, so he got a lifetime contract at Pebblebrook. So last year when I finally beat him, I was like, oh, yes, I got a lifetime deal at Pebblebrook now. So the running joke was whoever could beat Wheeler first get a lifetime contract. And that's how bad we want to beat him, and that's how hard it was.
There you go. And for folks that don't know about Pebblebrook, let me give them just a little outline. Pebblebrook's a Title I school in South Cobb County. Sits about 5 miles off the Fulton County, that's city of Atlanta, and the Cobb County line in the southernmost part of Cobb County. And a lot of underprivileged folks down there, a very blue-collar area, but a working-class area, but a loyal area. Wouldn't you agree with that, Coach?
Yes, I would agree with that. Some very good, hard-working people in that area. I mean, I enjoy the support we get from the community all the time. And they just good kids, really good kids.
Yeah. Coach Doug, what do you think about him beating you?
Well, if you stay in the game long enough, that's going to happen. But I say I don't mind looking back as a person like George Washington's program winning against us because, he works very hard with the program. And I'm going to say, he's built it from the ground up. And he's definitely one of those people that you could say you become so good that they can't ignore you. So, and that's exactly what he's done at Pebblebrook. You can't ignore them because they're in the finals or somewhere near the finals every year, which is great. But I'm going to tell you, when you play against them, you better have your shoes tied up tight and your game on. As they say, get in beast mode.
Doug, let me ask you this question right here. And we didn't ask this question. George, this ain't on the sheet of paper, and I'm going to throw this out there. Doug, you coached for 25 years. You've seen coaches come and go. When did you know that George, this guy, had it together at Pebblebrook? You've seen people come and go at Pebblebrook. You've seen people come and go at other schools. What made a difference with George, do you think? What was that?
When you can get your kids to respond to what you want them to do and buy into your program. And so he did that. That's a great thing to do. And, if you can get that accomplished, then the sky's the limit.
No doubt.
Coach,
thank you, Coach. Oh man, and I ain't just blowing smoke up your tail. If you wasn't no good, Coach, think about it. You wouldn't be talking to us now.
That's true. We
only want the best, Coach, just like everybody else.
You notice we didn't talk to the Campbell coach. Oh, I heard you, son.
That came from Darren Sutherland, spelled with an S-U. Okay, now let's get back on task here, Coach. Please tell us what you think one of your best high school moments as a coach was or is.
Best high school moment is signing day for me. Just seeing these kids sign and go to college, see how their families enjoy the moment of them signing. We make signing day a spectacular thing. Make the guys dressed up, everybody have on bow ties. And it's a huge thing for our program when kids sign and go to college, no matter what level. We got kids at high majors, low majors, D1, D2, D3, NAI. So we're just excited when kids are able to sign and parents don't have to pay for college. That's the biggest thing for us as a program.
Sounds good, Coach.
That's awesome. What's the toughest part, Coach? What's the toughest part of your job? Because I know there's a tough part there, and people don't see the tough part. They see the wins, they see the losses, but they don't see what goes on behind the scenes, behind the veil. And to keep it real, tell us what the toughest part about it is.
The toughest part is convincing parents to buy into the program and to buy in the role that their child may have to take. A lot of times, kids come from various AAU programs, and they've been stars on the AAU program, or they've been stars on the mom and pops programs and stuff like that. And just get them to buy into the concept of team and buying into what we want them to do and what their role to be on our team to make our program continue to be successful. I think that's the hardest part of the job, is just convincing parents of the role that child may take. Children are okay with, hey, son, here's your role on this team. If you want to get X, Y, Z minutes, here's what you have to do. Kids buy into that. And you tell them, hey, once you complete that task, hey, I can give you more roles on this team. But if you master that one, I'm going to add on to it. But parents is the hardest thing. Hey, my child needs to score 20 tonight, Coach. Your child is not capable of scoring 20 on this level.
Hey, Coach, let me ask you this. And I've asked a number of basketball coaches this, and I've asked a number of players this. Kids know it doesn't matter what talent you have in life. You can be a musician, you can be a basketball player, you can be a football player, you can be a baseball player. But kids actually know when they walk on the court who the alpha male is a lot of times. Is that not true? Even though the parents may not agree with them, and the parents may think, oh, my little Johnny's the best one out there. The 5 kids on the floor, they know who the so-called leader is, or who's going to help them when the times come. Is that not true? I mean,
the kids know who the alpha male is at practice. The alpha male going to stand out no matter what. He going to command certain things from his teammates, from himself, that the parents often don't see. And that's what parents get caught up in. Hey, well, if this player scored 30 tonight, why is he allowed to take this shot? Why is he allowed to do this? Well, he was at the gym at 5 a.m. this morning taking the same shot 100 times. He's allowed to take that shot in the game for me. So a lot of parents don't see what the alpha male does outside of the game, and they get caught up in that.
No doubt. I've often said this, and I've told Coach Doug this. In coaching, I don't care on what level it is. It could be Little League, it could be AAU, it could be high school, it could be college. Parents want to see the 4 best kids and their son on the floor at all times.
No. Darren, I disagree. They just want to see their child on the floor. They don't care if it's losing. They don't care if it's somebody. They don't care if it's the 4 worst players. As long as their child is on the floor, hey, they are happy.
That's funny. Yeah. That's funny. Coach, did you ever see that with your parents giving you crap like that?
Well, you speaking on my players' parents?
Yeah, your parents.
Well, I mean, it has happened in the past, but, it's going to be short-lived.
Did it get easier? I mean, I'm sure it was harder when you first started, but after you get 10 years in, 15 years in, 20 years in, does it they kind of shut up the longer you coach?
Well, I think you're always going to be questioned no matter who you are. I mean, I don't have a problem with telling people, like, I think I know what I'm doing, and I have people around me that know what they're doing as well. And those, they just don't give them rings out that you get when you win the state championship. So I think if they can't look up there on the building and see my name was put up there, and I didn't go put it up there. So I think that I do have knowledge of the game.
And they don't know that you got a degree in psychology from Middle Tennessee State University either, do
But we don't have to tell them that. They'll figure it out. But I'm going to say this.
George, we got to bring Middle Tennessee up in every show.
That's right.
Because if I don't, he's going to bring them up,
But see, let me explain something to you, the people that are listening. Like, one of the worst things that can happen, but it's good for the families, is that if your kid plays football and you've been a contributor, that football coach is going to find somewhere to hide you, whether it's the special team or the kickoff team or somewhere like that.
Yeah.
Or right field.
Hey, but when it comes to basketball, you can't hide them.
No.
You cannot hide them. They're going to be exposed, or you're going to be exposed.
I don't know. Tyrone Johnson hid my son pretty well on the basketball floor. I'm messing with him.
He was a contributor. No, I'm just playing, man. But no, back to what we're discussing, Coach. Tell us how you feel about recruiting in today's the game of basketball today with the handlers and the trainers, and how do you make that work in your program?
Well, one thing you have to do, you have to embrace the culture that we're in right now. And the culture that we're in right now is AAU basketball, trainers, handlers, and all that, those people. What we do is we welcome them in, but we also tell them what our role is and what their role is. I had a conversation with a guy the other day, and I'm saying, hey, I appreciate what you've done for him so far, and I'm going to continue to let you do whatever you do with him. But let's you and I come together and say, hey, what can we do together to better this player so that he can help me out and help you out? And then once you come to that agreement and come to those mutual conversations, then the relationship flourishes and the kid becomes a better player, better person, better everything about it. But you have to embrace it in this culture, or you won't have a kid. I've lost kids because I didn't embrace it, and I've gained kids because I haven't embraced it.
Okay.
Selfishly, do you ever get mad when you lose kids, Coach?
Nah, Coach, because my philosophy is this. I'm not designed to coach every kid, and every kid is not designed to play for me. So I don't get upset when I lose a kid. I tell them, hey, I hope they go into a situation that fits them and that's best for them, and I always wish them well. I lost several kids this year, but I wasn't upset, and I'm not bitter. Matter of fact, the kids that I lost, I've come to them probably just as much as now as I did when I had them. I don't get caught up in losing kids and how I'm all about the kids. And if it's a better situation and you're going to get more playing time, go ahead.
Yeah.
Coach George, on the Carriage Automotive Group Skype, Coach George Washington, Pebblebrook High School. Coach, a lot of people don't know this, but you coached one of the top freshmen in America at the University of Alabama this year, Collin Sexton. When did you first meet Collin and come in contact with Collin, and how did that relationship start before he came to play with you at Pebblebrook?
I saw him when he was in, I want to say about 6th grade. He had a long perm. And there's this kid running up down the court with this long perm, scoring, assisting, celebrating. His passion for the game as a sixth grader was unreal. And I see him and his dad get into it, and his dad pull him out and put him back in, and he'd go out there and score and D-up and talk. And, I fell in love with his passion then, and I just followed him from then. And his brother and I had a couple battles when his older brother played at Hillgrove, and they went to the Final Four in the state championship. And we were all in the same region then. And we just got to know the family, got to know each other, and the situation wasn't working out at the school he was at. And parents packed up and moved into Pebblebrook. When he walked in the gym, I called quite a few schools, and I said, hey, the best player that I've ever coached is in the gym now. And, some people didn't believe me. Some people did. Alabama did, and Alabama been following him ever since that day.
Good. Coach, here's the thing I want to throw out at you. Like when I said you become so good that they can't ignore you. So what happened in your program is the top-notch players wanted to be a part of your program. In that process,
Correct.
You had people that felt like, and I've been in that same boat where they felt like you had to be doing something illegal to get the kids there. And you really don't, because your work speaks for itself. But explain
Correct.
to people how some people in power positions feel like they don't trust you. And I've had the situation where people have gone to my players' houses and looked in the closet to make sure clothes were there. Can you explain your experience with that?
Coach, man. The sheriff sat out in front of Collin House for about 6 months. When you leave a predominantly white school and you arrive at a predominantly black school, the perception is, what have y'all done, or what have y'all did, or what have y'all said? When we started building this program, we convinced some 8th graders that were at Lindley Middle School that was about to go to a million other schools because they had a choice. They didn't have to come to Pebblebrook. They chose to come to Pebblebrook, even though they had opportunities to go elsewhere and play. If you look at the history of Lindley Middle School, how many championships that 8th grade team and 7th grade team have won in the Cobb County, the majority of those kids never came to Pebblebrook. They went to other schools. So my job was, as a head coach, is to get with my feeder and make sure those kids come to us. Once we started that, and then everybody else said, hey, I want to come and play with those guys. I want to come play with you, Coach. I want to come play in your system, how you guys allow your guards to be free. And people think you have to do stuff. No, at this point, I turn away a lot of kids every day. I hang up the phone and I don't answer the phone on a lot of people on a daily basis because now we've built it. People want to come. You don't have to say a thing to a kid. Willow doesn't have to say a thing to a kid. Norcross, kids just show up. I mean, and they're going to continue to show up because we are successful and the schedule that we play and us not being afraid to play anybody anywhere. Kids like that. Parents enjoy that. Parents want their kids to be in the spotlight. Parents like the fact that 100 coaches came to Pebblebrook from August to October to watch kids work out. So we open our doors up to the college coaches. We open our doors up to people to come in and see our kids. And we just try to build a program where kids are successful in going to college.
When the college coaches were recruiting Collin and recruiting other great players that you had come through Pebblebrook, Coach, what makes one program stand out over the other? I mean, what made Alabama stand out to Collin and his family over the other? I mean, you've had coaches play for the University of Georgia, you've had them play for Alabama and tons of other schools. But what generally makes one school stand out over the other? Is it, in your opinion?
Well, you have to understand this. Everybody got the same facilities. So kids don't get caught up in facilities because all the facilities in the SEC and the ACC are great. And at the mid-majors. For my kids, it's more of a relationship. Whatever coach come in there and builds a relationship with the kid, the family, and it's genuine. I mean, you can see it. You can understand fake, and you know when someone's being not genuine with you. So for us and our kids, it's just about the relationships and somebody being genuine with our kids and understanding that, hey, I need you to take care of this kid for the next 4 years and after that. We're looking for life after basketball. So that's what sells us on a lot of programs, what they do with their kids after basketball. Because one day the ball going to stop bouncing. Then what are you going to do and what are you going to have to fall back on?
Yes.
How important is AAU in the scouting process this day and time?
Oh, it's huge. It's huge. AAU is huge as far as the recruitment because a lot of times, sometimes the first time a college coach sees a kid is at one of the major events. A lot of times the college coaches can't come to a high school game or a single high school game because if they come to a single high school game, they're probably only going to see 1 to 2 Division I players. So when they go to an AAU event, they get to see maybe 100 high major Division I players playing against high major kids. So for them, the evaluation process a lot of times starts at the AAU events, and then it comes back to the live period in August when they're able to come to, September, when they're able to come to the high school and see the kids work out, and then get to meet their families and get to talk to the high school coaches. So a lot of times it initially starts with the AAU events that start in April and May.
Coach, let me throw a question out at you, and this is something that I know you've become involved with, just like I've been involved with it as well. When our kids are helped by, let's say your program is helped by a shoe company, whether it be Converse, Adidas, Nike, and so on, do you think that has a major influence on where the kid goes to college? Or how do you feel about that situation?
Sometimes it has a little bit of effect, but I'll say this. Kids nowadays are caught up on the shoe. They don't necessarily say, hey, I want to go to a school because it's a Nike school or Under Armour or Adidas or Reebok or Converse. They like to wear Nikes, let's just be honest. Kids love to wear Nikes. Adidas has done a lot, and I think Under Armour has done a lot by adding Stephen Curry to the line. So now kids are more willing to go to schools that have those other brands, where in the past kids were like, hey, I just want to wear Nike. I want to wear Nike. So I think now that other brands are catching up. But I don't say no. I would say no. It doesn't have a total effect on the decision.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Coach, let me ask you this. If Baller Brand would build you a new gym down there in Pebblebrook, would you let them kids wear Baller Brands at Pebblebrook?
Yeah, hey, we would be ZO2 to death. We have more some ZO2s and some big outfits.
But, it's interesting that you mentioned the Baller Brand shoes, Coach. I'm talking to Darren. But listen to this, Coach. I just want to keep it real with you as well. I don't know what else you would have to do as a coach or as a program or as a school to have a new facility built for your program. I mean, because you've been winning since you got there, and you're continuing to win, and that's consistency. And, I mean, you're producing a product that people want. So, like I say, I don't understand what else you would have to do to get a new arena built for the kids down in your area.
Well, it wouldn't be just for the kids. It'd be for the community. It'd be something that the community can say, hey, we have a great facility for our kids to come in, play, practice, train, and then we can do stuff in the off season. Unfortunate, this year we can't even host the second round of the state playoffs.
Why is it? Because your gym's too small?
Gym's too small. Per the new rule. I said the new rule is a Pebblebrook rule. There are a couple rules that I see now that I call Pebblebrook rules in Georgia High School Association. The gym is a Pebblebrook rule this year. Besides, we hold 1,900 people in our gym. Guess what the rule is this year? You got to have at least 2,000. I'm 100 short. Because last year there were complaints from other schools. We don't want to go play at Pebblebrook. We can't even have big region games at our school. We have to have them at the Cobb County Civic Center. So I lose home court advantage. Even though I earned it, I won the region, and now I don't have home court advantage.
And you know what? Just speaking plain, that takes out some of the atmosphere. Let's just face it. Duke could sell 10,000 more tickets a night, but they choose to stay in Cameron Indoor. The gyms, if you look at the history of basketball in one of the great states that we broadcast to, Indiana, they play in some of the smallest gyms in America, but yet they're sold out season tickets and people know. So that's some of the good things about it. So you're right. The Pebblebrook rule that GHSA has probably instituted, let's just call it what it is. It sucks. It sucks for you and the program.
Yeah, because now we can't host the second round of state playoffs. We got to go. We got to go wherever it is. We have to go there. We can't because we're on seating capacity, and that rule was created just for us this year.
What's the county say to you about that?
Nothing at all.
Nothing at all. No comment.
No. Hey, let me say this. I'm under the microscope since Doug Lipscomb has retired.
hey, listen here. I'm just passing it on down the line.
Me right now.
Hey, Coach, here's another thing. I want you to honestly listen to this. The only way that we were able to build the arena is that they had to propose it to Cobb County School Board that our facility was going to be used for events that would help the community. They didn't care about how many state championships we had won, how many kids we put in college and have gone on to be successful adults. It had to be presented as something that would help the community where they could have, I don't know what you would call it. They sold the people on that we would have graduations at that school for the other high schools, which is great. But at the same time, acknowledge what we do.
Hey, if that's the way we got to spend it, I'll spend it that way too. Because honestly, our community would love to have a graduation at our high school versus us going to Kennesaw State or going somewhere else. I mean, I'll be honest with you. It would be great to have the graduation on campus where you've gone for 4 years.
Yeah, you live in an underprivileged area. It's tough a lot of times to get 5 and 6 people all the way up to Kennesaw State from Mableton. That ain't an easy drive for some folks. A lot of us take it for granted because we got the means to do it.
Not necessarily that, but when you have it at Kennesaw State, a family only gets 6 tickets, 6 to 8 tickets. I mean, I came from a huge family. My family I had 7 brothers and sisters. So we got to make a decision as a family who's going to the graduation. That's going to be a tough decision.
It's fun.
You're right.
Hey, Coach, take a moment. We've talked about Collin and his impact. Where do you see? I mean, we don't know if Collin's one and done. We see the projections. You know Collin personally. You've known the man and his family since he was very young. Our listeners all across the country are watching Collin, and they should because he's probably the number 1 or 2 guard for freshmen in the country, depending on how you look at it. And he is a top 10 pick. We've picked Coach Doug's mind here about Jaylen Brown and his players that have been one and done, so to speak. And we don't know that Collin's going one and done, but just where do you see what is your thought process when it comes to Collin And what do you see for him in the future in the NBA if he does come out this year?
Actually, if he does come out this year, I see him, being a lottery pick, going to a team where he gets a chance to display his skill set. A lot of teams have called, showing interest in him. We've talked to a lot of general managers. They're doing the background check. We've talked to a lot of scouts who are starting to speak to teachers, speak to the administration, talk to me, and talk to everyone just to find out what type of person he is, and what type of player he is, and what type of student he was. So now, looking ahead, if I can look ahead in my crystal ball, first year in the league, I see him being like Jalen. And we try to, as much as we do, we copy a lot of what we see at Wheeler and at the major programs throughout the country. And for Collin, I see him playing, sparing the minutes his first year here, there, and, embracing his role and learning a lot. Part of him choosing Alabama was because of Avery Johnson teaching him how to play the NBA game and what to do as far as NBA. Second year, oh, my God, I can see him just tearing it up and having a great time and selling out arenas because his charisma and his passion for the game, people love that. People are attracted to him. I mean, we were walking around New York City and kids and adults running up to him because he's a magnet. He's in the 5th percentile of people in the United States because of his smarts and his charisma and how people are attracted to him. So I see him having a long NBA career and doing great things for our school after he goes on and doing great things for the Mapleton community because they were a community that embraced him.
That sounds right on point, Coach. And as a matter of fact, I think the growth process will definitely take place because he'll be surrounded by people that have experience in that area.
One thing he mentioned there, Doug, that I'm going to keep real that you guys see that the general public really has no idea about is that these general managers have, in a sense, investigators come out to high schools and make phone calls, and they actually call you guys or send you questionnaires on these young men before they're ever drafted. Not just one team, but a lot of teams. Is that true, Coach George?
Oh, yeah, all the teams. Every team that's interested, even teams that don't think they may have a chance to get him. I've talked to at least 20 different NBA teams, and the conversations last at least an hour and a half. They want to know everything about his family. They want to know about his teachers. They want to know how he is off the court. They ask more personal questions rather than basketball-related questions. They don't care about, hey, can he play the pick and roll or anything like that. They want to know what type of teammate was he. What did he do in these situations? How did he react in class? And so for me, it's just, reliving all that stuff.
George, keeping it real, give me an example of one of the personal questions they asked that you were like, or Doug, one of the personal questions you guys have heard that just kind of like, wow, I never dreamed that.
They asked about his friends. They knew some of his friends, which was crazy to me. They knew some of his friends' names. They was like, well, what type of guy is this? And I'm like, well, how you know his name? And they was like, well, we do our research. So they knew all his friends' names. And they was like, hey, what type of person is this that he's hanging with? And I was like, whoa, how'd you know that? And they're like, we do our job, Coach, now. We're making an investment now. And I was just amazed that they knew who his friends were. That was amazing to me.
Wow.
And to go along with that, not only do they ask who's his friends, they ask you the question of what do they like to do and where do they like to go?
Oh, my God.
So they won't know who.
Outside of basketball, Coach, what does he like to do? Where does he go hang out at? I was like, wow.
Does he play PlayStation or does he go to hang on the corner?
Yeah. What books do you think he likes to read? Yeah. What does he like to do most in his spare time?
Folks, you don't hear information like this any other place but real life basketball. You're not going to hear a high school coach on ESPN tell you that these investigations going on. That's why we're glad you're listening to real life basketball. George Washington, head coach of Pebblebrook High School. Collin Sexton's high school coach with us today on the Carriage Automotive Group line. Coach, we've talked a lot about Collin. Take a moment and brag about Pebblebrook and some of your other players. What's going on now? Who some of the players that laid the foundation for Collin and other kids, and that sort of thing for us.
Hey, I'm really proud of my 2015 class. That was my first graduating class, major graduating class. They came in as freshmen. Ty Hudson. He originally signed with Clemson, and he's at Jacksonville State. Trey Mitchell, who's at South Alabama. Kevin Murphy, who went to Xavier, New Orleans. Derek Obedi, who's at University of Georgia. Who else in that class? I got a couple other guys who are at D2, Division III, Damari Alexander, Preston Forts, and all those guys who laid the foundation for the guys that came after them. Jared Harper, who's been the starting point guard at Auburn since his freshman year. Elias Harton, who's at Xavier. Who am I missing? Collin in Alabama. I'm missing somebody. And
well, just go ahead and miss them so we can get them sending us emails and complaining. Coach George missed my name.
Absolutely. Somebody's going to kill me. I don't know who I'm missing.
Well, that's good, though, because that means they were listening, Coach. But I'd like to add this little footnote right here. I'm very happy for your success, Coach, because I love seeing you at the McDonald's game, watching your player represent the program that you've built. But you know what's amazing is this fact right here. I think in life sometimes when, us guys are learning how to become coaches, then we learn the rules of the game like how everybody else has been playing it. And then once we learn those rules, then they feel like we're doing something that we shouldn't be doing. I'm going to give you a prime example. I've stated time and time again that no program has been successful unless kids have moved into that program. And people look at me like I'm crazy, but it's the truth. Any top-notch program has had somebody to move into that area, and they become better with the addition of those people when they do it the right way. But here's another thing. I'm looking at Memphis East. And so you have Penny Hardaway, who's bringing up that area of Memphis. Now, he's doing nothing that hadn't been done before, but since it's Penny Hardaway and those kids are moving to a predominantly African-American community, it's a problem now. But nobody has a problem with Oak Hill. Nobody has a problem with Mount Bird. Nobody has a problem with that. So when you learn the rules, then now the game is not fair. So, or you're doing something unfair. So I have the utmost respect for what is being accomplished in your program, Coach.
Thank you, Coach. Coach, here's the thing, and that bothers me about the whole process. I'm all about the kids and the empowerment of kids, and I want to see all kids successful. And to me, if we are about the kids as a basketball country or governing bodies, whatever governing bodies or whoever is coaching, then what's wrong with a kid saying, hey, the situation I'm in is not providing me with everything I need to be successful? What is wrong with a kid going to a successful program to become more successful as a person, as a player? Because it is okay for a kid to say, hey, the band program at this school I'm in sucks. I'm going to another school to be in a great band program, and nobody says a thing. It is nothing wrong if a kid says, hey, the math program at this school is not the math program I want to be a part of, or is not offering the math that I want to take as a student. So I can go to this school and there's no ramification.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
But when a player in basketball, because nothing's said about football, let's just keep it real. There are no cases in the state of Georgia or any state right now that is saying anything about football. But because a guy says, hey, I'm leaving to go to a basketball program and I want to be successful in basketball, but also I'm going to graduate high school with a good GPA, a 3.0 or better, and I'm going to move and my family's going to move and do whatever it takes for me to be successful. What is wrong with the family making that sacrifice?
There's nothing wrong with it at all. I will tell you where the perception becomes wrong with the general public, and I think you may agree with me. When we hear stories of one kid playing at 3 different high schools, and it makes the average public guy saying, 3 different high schools, what's up with that? And you could understand that perception, I think, Coach, when you see a kid go from one high school, and these are let's just say he's a basketball player. There was one individual that played at 3 different high schools for the City of Palms tournament that they talked about. I'm sitting there wondering myself, okay, maybe one coach was bad, maybe Daddy got transferred or something like that, but it goes back to that parental element too. That somebody's probably not making the right decision for a kid when he goes to 3 or 4 different high schools in 4 years. Could you kind of agree with me there a little bit, though? But I totally agree with what you're saying on a kid ought to go where they should excel.
Well, here's my comment on kids when they make multiple moves. A lot of times the parents are looking for something, and they just can't find what they're looking for. And a lot of times when those kids move that many times, their parents have the resources to make those moves without any regards to whether they're losing money or not. My philosophy would be this, and this is what I've always said when anybody asks me. I think a kid should be allowed one transfer without the parents having to move or anything. They should be allowed one transfer. After that transfer, any transfer after that, you have to sit a year. And that will be my philosophy on that. Because there are some kids who go from high school to high school to high school, and they blame the high school coaches, and the previous high school coach blame this high school coach, and that, I mean, hey, I've been killed on Twitter. I'm okay with it, though, because I know the kids that come to my program get treated very, very well. So I'm okay with that. I think it should be one transfer, and then after that, you look at a kid sitting out possibly. But there are other sports that kids transfer and nothing is made of it. Why is it always a problem when basketball kids transfer? That's my big question.
Okay. And, Coach, let me hit you with a couple of different perspectives here. Florida, if I'm not mistaken, said, the heck with all this, you go to whatever school you want to go to. Am I wrong or am I right about that?
You're right. Florida this year kind of sort of did away with all of the transfer rules because it was so bad. And what you have to understand is when you got a Mount Verde and an IMG in your state and close to your state and the university school, those schools have unlimited resources. They can get any kid they want anytime they want. And, I mean, it's really nothing a public school or some of the lower private schools can do. And, I mean, Mount Verde and those schools are actively recruiting kids in Georgia. Collin will tell you, Jared Harker will tell you, Todd Hudson will tell you, they all play for me. They got calls from all those schools, Oak Hill, all the way to Mount Verde, IMG, all of them called them. And it's just a matter of if a kid's going to be loyal and you're treating kids good, they'll stay. I mean, if kid's not loyal, then kid going to leave.
Did they call Collin, Coach?
Oh, yes. He got called from everybody in the country.
What's the weirdest thing you've ever seen another high school do to try to recruit one of your kids? You don't have to mention the high school, but just recruiting high school to high school, what's the craziest thing you ever seen happen?
They followed him around. They follow Collin around every session. You have all the EYBL sessions. I mean, they followed him. They had 4 guys to follow him every session. But once you know Collin parents, they're loyal. I mean, they are loyal parents. They did not want to leave the previous situation. They just had to for the success of Collin. They are very loyal. They don't want to. They're not going to do it. So I wasn't really worried about it with him or any of my players. I mean, the ones who come and go, they're going to come and go no matter what. And those are the ones that you're going to see on the transfer list when they go to college. That's why a lot of the major schools, when you see a kid move 5 or 6 times, the major schools back off. And if you look at them, the major schools back off a lot of kids who move 3, 4, 5 times. The high major's not going to do it anymore because he's a flight risk. When things not going their way, guess what they're going to do? They're going to leave.
And Coach, let me add something to that right there. When they discuss kids that have moved multiple times, let's go ahead and be honest. That kid is usually going to be a tremendous player because rarely ever you're going to hear about Lil Billy transferring 3 schools and sitting on the bench. They don't give a flip about Lil Billy. So that kid.
Lil Billy can go to 8 high schools in 4 years, and the paperwork will be filled out, and he'll be approved one day after you send the paperwork in.
Yeah, to sit on the end of the bench down there now. So he's not a problem. Yeah. But what I do know for a fact is...
Hold on, no. Little Billy helps the grade point average of the team move up a lot of times.
Well, that's true, too. But make sure...
George, I'm just trying to keep it real,
okay,
man.
But Coach, check this out right here. When I'm going to tell you to sign up a good program. When a kid leaves your program, he goes to another school, and then in the summertime, he comes back to play with your players. And you let him play. So I've seen that happen. Yeah, come on back, because that lets me know that you appreciate where you were. I've also had kids to leave, and then the coach that they go to in college says, well, I should have known he was going to leave. Well, did you look at the track record? Once again, you got to do your homework on every level.
Oh, absolutely. It's true. I mean, I've had college coaches come in and tell me, hey, we're not going to recruit this kid anymore, coach, because he left your program, and your program is what we like. We like how you guys do it. So, a lot of kids at recruitment has changed because they left. I mean, but I tell the parents all the time, Pebblebrook ain't for everybody.
Right. Coach, I've enjoyed talking with you, man, and it's very insightful for the people that will tune in and listen to us. I wish you continued success, and I'm going to definitely be there to support you. You know that.
And Coach,
I appreciate it, Coach. Appreciate it a lot.
And Coach, as a lifetime South Cobb County guy, and let me throw this out there to Coach Gwynn over at Campbell. And making fun of him a while ago. I'm a Wheels guy. You don't know that, Coach. Wheels was a school in Smyrna before Campbell and Wheels merged. So I ain't never going to root for Campbell. I told David Boyd the same thing when I was on the phone with him a couple of weeks ago. I ain't never going to root for Campbell High School. Coach knows that. So I'm going to throw off on Campbell every chance I get. But you know what? Let me say this in a personal note. If you're listening in Virginia or Oregon, it don't make no sense. George Washington, and this is my political soapbox for the folks of Cobb County. George Washington's coaching at Title I Pebblebrook High School, bringing kids and bringing things into the county. There's no reason in the world George Washington shouldn't get a new gym and a new arena down there in Mableton, Georgia, that would rival what is going on at a program like Walton High School right now that doesn't have the winning tradition. They've got a monetary tradition up there in East Cobb of sending kids to Harvard, Yale, UCLA, the University of Georgia. However, they don't have the tradition of putting people in the seats that George does down there. But at the same time, you've got one of the finest performing arts schools in the world where kids are leaving there, going to Juilliard, going on to Broadway and everywhere else. So, Coach, you've done a tremendous job down there, and I appreciate it. All righty?
Thank you. Thank you guys so much. I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
No problem. Hope you have good luck in the tournament this week, man, and keep beating teams that are probably better than you, like I watched you play the other week. All righty?
Go Wheeler.
Doug, you great job. Hey, I did that for Doug. You gonna do it for Doug.
You did that for Doug.
Hey.
Oh, Lord.
Right,
see, I wasn't going to bring no other team
All right,
up.
y'all have a good one.
All right, brother.
Enjoyed it, boss. Enjoyed it.
Right.
That's Coach George Washington on the Carriage Automotive Group Skyline. Man, I about messed up there, Coach. But you know what? Here's what I like about that, Doug. We kept it real the whole time.
Almost definitely.
He told real stories the whole time. Let's go ahead and finish this out and finish the show out. We went a little long today, but still, I said we were going to do predictions, and I said we were going to talk a little bit about Zion because we've got so many people that want to know about Zion and where he's going to go in the predictions. And I'm going to tell you what I read in some of the tweets. I get tweets all the time, questions about stuff. People look at me on Real Life Basketball Podcast tweet, or they look at me on D.Sutherland2, and they ask me questions all the time. And I don't mind answering questions because usually I'm at home tonight watching a movie or just relaxing, and I kind of enjoy it. And, Doug, you get texts and questions all the time too. Oh, yeah. But last night, the big three schools that we're hearing about Zion, we talked to Jerry Myers up at 247 Sports, 2 weeks ago?
Yes.
And Jerry said the big schools were, Kentucky, Clemson, Duke, and North Carolina with the big four. They didn't think he may go to Duke because Duke's already signed 2 of the 3, but then again, he's got 3 there. Okay, here's what I learned last night. His father played football defensive tackle for NC State. So his father has influence in his life somewhat on where he's going, okay? Now, hold on just a second. His stepfather, though, who raised him, played basketball and has been in his life since he's 5 years old at Clemson and is an awesome man. Any man that raises another man's son and loves him like his own is an angel, my grandmother used to say, okay? Is an angel. Amen. When you do that. There's no other thing in this world when you help a child out like that. But he played for Clemson. His mother was a track star at Limestone, which is a small college in South Carolina, okay? So to me, being such a family guy that I hear that he is, and he's a tremendous family guy, Kentucky's too far away. Kansas is too far away. Duke's already got the players. North Carolina, I don't think he's going to go to Carolina. I think it's Clemson, Coach. That's just my prediction. And you know what? Let me say this. He is a fine young man. Everything I've read about him, and to have this much press on you at the age of 17 or 18, it's got to be hard, don't it, Coach? You saw it happen firsthand with Jalen and Sharif and some other children. And let's say this, folks. They're children. They're 17 years old, 18 years old. Isn't this an incredible amount of pressure with grown men and fans all across the country pulling and snagging? It's tough on them, isn't it, Coach?
Well, I think it's tough, but I also believe that his support group is fantastic, and this is not new to them. This has been going on since this kid was about, I'd say 11, 12, 13. It just blew up right then.
Right.
Mm-hmm. So he's fine.
He's fine. Does the fact he plays for a smaller school, Spartanburg Day, does that hurt him? No,
because I've seen and been in events with them where they're standing room only, and the line for his game is already to the sidewalk with an hour to go before the game.
Really?
Yes.
Wow. So Zion, best of luck. We'd love to have him on the show, wouldn't we?
Yes, it'd be great.
We'd love to have his parents on the show, wouldn't we?
Even better.
They know how to get a hold of you, don't they, Coach?
Yes, they do.
We can talk to them if they'll give us a hey, much love to the kid, much love to the family. And here's what I appreciate most of all. I appreciate the family unit that it's involved in his life, regardless. Whether he's a basketball player or a drummer in the band, you keep family around a child, and the child's going to succeed for the most part.
I agree.
Without a doubt. Coach, I said real quick, 2018 predictions. NBA, who you got in the finals?
Golden State versus anybody in the world.
Golden State versus anybody. See, Coach ain't going to go against his Boston Celtics and Jaylen Brown. I said that to him before. But I've got to go with Golden State just because you don't vote against the champs. I think Oklahoma City and Houston's going to give them a tough time out west when it comes down to it. But unless James Harden does like me and shaves after New Year's, I think it's going to slow him down somewhat. What do you think about this beard there, Nick? What do you think? Is it looking good or not?
It's looking pretty good.
What do you think, Coach?
Keep it.
Hide somebody ugly. So, I think Boston, if they can stay healthy with Jalen and Horford and those guys, is going to look good. I really do.
That's always the key. You got to stay healthy.
But you can't ever count LeBron out, can you?
I am.
You are? Well, if LeBron don't make it this year, you know what we're going to be talking about all summer?
Where is he going?
Where's LeBron going? And who cares? Because we care more about where Zion Williamson's going. Hey, you've been listening to Real Life Basketball. Tell your friends, tell your family. Go into iTunes, give us a rating, give us a review. You can pick us up, shoot us a message on Twitter, shoot us a message on Facebook. We want to hear from you. Thank you. We've crusted a record mark of listeners in 8 short episodes. 8 short episodes. We're figuring this thing out, ain't we, Coach? A little bit by a little bit.
Sir.
I mean, if you listen to our first show and then listen to our 8th show, I hope we've improved. Do you think we have?
I think we have.
And you know what? Our guests are getting better and better. Gooder and gooder, as my grandmama used to say. Gooder, we got gooder and gooder guests and better guests coming in recent weeks. Thanks to Stan Jones, assistant coach for Florida State, for coming on with us and keeping it real as always. Thank you to George Washington, head coach at Pebblebrook High School, for coming on and keeping it real with us. Coach, thank you for being my partner doing this, and we're going to have a good New Year. Don't you think?
Yes.
All righty. You've been listening to Real Life Basketball on the BG Podcast Network.